Let me begin this video with a positive statement. I'm thrilled game developers can learn from their mistakes and correct. Like a student driver sweating under the weight of a stern instructor who catastrophically overcorrects by turning into a semi-truck relocating an Indian burial ground. What? You actually believe me when I claim this was starting with a positive? Well, it just goes to show that you're no match for my Hannibal Lecter mind games, where I tell you to expect one thing when in fact it's the complete opposite. Mind games being the theme of the past two Dark Pictures anthology games, where it would show you monsters only for them to be a figment of someone's chemically addled or traumatized mind. I suppose the janitor at the office ran into one of the writers at the urinal and explained that pulling the same twist in the series a third time wasn't going to fly, so they added 3 horror stories where the monsters together and ended up with undead alien vampires in Iraq during the War on Terror. With that combination, the word subtlety is just a French swear for cowards. The cerebral part of the game is the setting during the invasion of Iraq, and all of that political, religious, and international conflict is encapsulated into just 2 members of the cast: the intolerant southern jarhead and the compassionate, logical, and all-around swell Iraqi Republican guardsman. Oh, those 2. Will they ever get along? Yes, but maybe no. Depends on how you want to play it. Such is the way one of these games is played. Played is not the correct word to describe the experience. More like aggressive backseating. The idea being that what if you watched a horror movie and yelling at the screen to not go in there actually worked? To be fair, these games do a marvelous job at proving your average horror movie watcher would have better survival odds in the characters, because keeping everyone alive tends to be piss easy provided you don't screw up the QuickTime events. Or maybe it's due to the game following every single horror movie cliché in the book, so we've all come overly prepared for the scenario. Well, not all horror movie clichés. 3 members of the cast are too focused on their love triangle to be concerned with the alien space vampires, finding every moment to butt heads over who the woman is going to sleep with in the future. But since female characters aren't allowed to be attractive these days in Western media, we have 2 male underwear models fighting over the school lunch lady, who's succeeding at juggling the 2 of them. Being the 3rd game in this anthology and with nothing changed gameplay-wise, there's no point wasting words on describing what it's like to walk down a hallway and press a button to open a door or look closely at something until the jump scare happens, other than it makes me wonder why it takes them a year to make each episode. All the gameplay is untouched from game to game, so all they're doing is motion capturing the actors and recording their lines, and since they reuse the same actor from each episode, they don't even have to make entirely new models for them. There's still 1 more game left in this season, with a 2nd season in the planning. That means at least 5 more games that all play identically to the previous 3, so do yourself a favor and get as many people as you can killed during your playthrough, because I guarantee it makes it more entertaining, plus a bit shorter. Every game can be a 7 out of 10 if you get most of the cast killed. Like the previous 2 episodes, House of Ashes begins with a prologue set in the past which sets up the main plot, so you can expect every character here to die just like the last 2 times.
Tell me, General, does she remind you of anyone?
My king?
Do you not see a hint of your own daughter in her? What age would she have been now?
18.
18. What a tragedy this plague has been. Kill her.
That's an odd thing to bring up right after you ordered him to slit her throat. Doesn't this screaming human sacrifice remind you of your dear sweet daughter who died slowly of starvation in the famine, while you could do nothing to help her? Cut her head off for me, would you? Very impressive of the Akkadian Empire, a Bronze Age civilization, to have created iron bars for cell doors over 1,000 years before the start of the Iron Age. That had to be the quickest locked up to escape ratio in entertainment history. The guard only just finished locking his cell. The battle between the Gutians and Akkad combined with the solar eclipse wake up the vampire aliens who slaughter both sides, but the solar eclipse is what allows them to come up to the surface. And that's only around 6 minutes of darkness to do all this.
What is out there? What have you Akkadians done to unleash such force?
We've been cursed. Our king has cursed us all. We thought you were the demons. You are wrong.
The war between the Gutians and Akkad and the relationship between these 2 form the allegory for the Iraq War and Jason and Salim as well, because history repeats, and no one will take a game about undead space vampires seriously unless it feels poetic and includes a deeper message on prejudice and listening to Republican politicians when they want to go to war. A rat would only cast a shadow that large if there was a light source close to it. Here the fire cauldron is above it, so it wouldn't cast a shadow on the wall like that. Vampires must have arthritis since they always open doors slowly like this.
Let me speak plainly. You're about to make some difficult decisions. Decisions that will affect the lives of others.
Games really need to stop pretending like the player is seated on the Supreme Court. There's a reason no one ever lists choose-your-own-adventure books in their top 10 lists of best literature. I don't begrudge a developer for working with actors they're comfortable with, but when making a yearly series of games, it helps if I don't immediately recognize half the cast from last year's game. The Iraqi Republican Guard commander was a professor in Little Hope, The dark-haired woman is also the dark-haired woman for Little Hope. The tough black guy was the nerdy black guy from Man of Medan. The white southern soldier was one of the white southern soldiers in Man of Medan's prologue. And the guy with glasses is even the insane rich kid from Until Dawn. The only cast members that aren't repeats are the ones that probably cost more since they have established TV careers.
Rachel King.
Colonel King has arrived on base, ma'am. He's en route to the briefing room.
You decided to have a makeout session with your boyfriend 5 minutes before your husband shows up on base.
It's him. He's early.
Your husband, you mean? Don't you think it's about time you came clean?
I don't think it's the best of ideas to encourage Rachel to tell her husband, who is the ranking officer on base, about how you've been nailing his wife, who is also your commanding officer, while you're all about to go on a dangerous mission to look for chemical weapons.
Satellite sweeps of the war zone have uncovered what appears to be an underground storage facility. This will, of course, require further investigation, but I strongly suspect it's where Saddam's chemical weapons are hidden.
I can't believe I have to use the talking points from 2003 US political discussions for a sin video in 2022. Wouldn't Saddam and his forces have used said chemical weapons while they were in control of the country? Why would they wait until the country was under complete US control before deploying them? You can now play this sin video on CNN.
We go dark until weapons are secured. If we don't break radio sounds within 24 hours, CENTCOM will mount a rescue operation.
I am quite confident that CENTCOM would want more updates than 24 hours before getting worried with a team investigating a possible chemical weapons depot in what is still a war zone. By this point in the PR war at home, US politicians were desperate to prove they hadn't just bullshitted their country into an invasion. Fox News would have a field reporter tagging along to capture the evidence live. When looking for chemical or biological weapons, our team leader brings a UV wand with him and no actual protection like gas masks, testing kits, or protective suits. For a man who is still serving in the military of a defeated nation and up against the United States, Salim seems awfully unstressed, jaunting home to give his son a birthday present. The developers clearly believe that the narrower the field of view, the more scary and personal the game will feel. I just felt it made it unnecessarily hard to navigate a room. What you're looking at are not cinematic camera angles. This is just how the camera works.
العدو جاي يا سليم. العدو جاي علينا دلوقتي.
العدو. يا فندم الحرب خلصت خلاص وخسرنا.
The game has the Iraqi characters speak their native language, but the Akkadians in the prologue had to stick with English. Just checking to make sure my prosthetic leg is still there. And yep, there it is. Sometimes you just leave it lying on the coffee table when you go off to inspect chemical weapon sites. How did those US choppers miss the large truck transporting Iraqi soldiers right under them headed in the same direction?
You two want to cut the bullshit and focus on the mission?
Hey, only one place I let a woman boss me around like that, alright? That's between the sheets.
I'm surprised your mom lets women into your bedroom. Don't want her getting jealous now.
Is this that toxic masculinity I keep hearing about, but only ever see examples of when hack writers decide to unsubtly include it in their plots, for no other reason than to have someone tell the character off, because the author has a serious case of staircase wit? The shepherds living on top of the supposed underground chemical weapons storage seem to worship the monsters down there. If they knew monsters were right under their feet, why did they operate a drug smuggling operation here? Who's going to reward you? Saddam's government has already been toppled. Where did the RPG launcher's rocket suddenly appear from? The case only contained the launcher, but Salim already has it loaded once he takes hold of it. Your tactic is to get closer so they can't shoot you. Bullets work just fine at 10 meters. Firing from your high ground position above would give you the advantage. Both Salim and Dar should be dead or seriously injured with that frag grenade going off right next to them. Instead, they just get knocked out briefly. All the commotion causes the ground to cave in a spectacularly impossible way, with different holes opening up under each of the main character's feet and dropping them into the underground temple in pairs. Would a statue really be constructed with a mouth that is some sort of tunnel? Unless this was a very early children's slide. What would have been the point? You wouldn't be able to reach it since it's facing the sky. Monsters are very timid creatures and run from their prey at the beginning of badly written horror stories.
We need to get back topside, regroup with the rest of the squad, and signal for medevac.
They will make no effort to actually leave this place, while having access to climbing equipment and standing under 2 holes with sunlight streaming down from them.
Cut the wires!
Cut the barbed wire by sawing directly against his flesh with a combat knife that would be ineffective at cutting through wire that thick. I somehow smothered Merwin to death to keep him silent while administering morphine. Death by asphyxiation takes a lot longer than 30 seconds. Salim fell through a statue's open mouth earlier. How did he come to in this location where there is no statue but a plain hole in the ceiling? These monsters behave like dogs that place their ball to be thrown, only to yank it away when you reach for it, then place it down again to be thrown. The only difference being the ball is a corpse. If this place is so unstable that one of the trucks from the service can fall through the ground and crush the monster, how'd the shepherds ever build anything on top of it? Eric's team even landed a helicopter on it.
Carabiners, quick draws, rope, light.
The two ranking individuals carrying all the climbing equipment decide to head deeper into the tunnels instead of up and out. Expert climbers using the most unsafe rappel possible. They have nothing but a rope going between their two fists and a single carabiner with no safety harness.
It'll work. Just needs gas.
Gasoline lasts just a few months at best inside a sealed container. Trying to start a generator that's been down here since World War II isn't going to work. Not the first time I've had to send this series for that.
Why would there be a machine gun here?
It's a World War II model. Ties in with the time the archaeologists were here.
Strange choice of equipment for an archaeological team to bring down here with them.
We need to let go of it. There's someone else now.
Maybe you should have asked for a divorce then. He can't let go if you're still legally married. Alimony stuff needs to be worked out first. Very important.
The bones of this temple are drenched in blood. We have set foot on an uncharted shore and roused something ancient and wicked. A blasphemy that comes in indescribable shapes and forms.
House of Ashes doesn't seem to realize how silly it is, expecting the player to take its monsters seriously, using the old trick where they don't show it to you for the first half except for glimpses. They already tried to have the smart horror experience the last two times and failed. Once you've went with space vampires, you might as well bake them under a spotlight and lay into the absurdity. Dar, the Iraqi commander, attacks them while rappelling down from the ceiling. Had he just taken aim from above while they were unaware, I'm sure he would have taken out at least one of them. This man really doesn't believe in having the high ground. Dar didn't hear all their screaming or see the flare Rachel lit up.
So much for Eric's pioneering thermal satellite system.
You're more upset about Eric's satellite working. Yeah, it worked. It found this place, didn't it? Then your girlfriend dying because he cut the rope? After watching the monster's arm burn in the sunlight, Salim decides to run out the light protecting him to grab a pipe to fight a monster that survived having a truck fall on top of it. This actually works. It is simply staking a vampire after all. But why would alien vampires created through parasites live up to every single piece of vampire lore on Earth except for thick Transylvanian accents? A random group of American soldiers who also fell into the temple show up and you just know they're about to die even quicker than those two that had names and characters. Dar attacks these three with a grenade which caves the roof in, separating them. Nick tries to radio the other two and gets no response despite being in the same room with them, with only a rock between them. I think he could yell and they would hear him.
They react to sound like bats. They hear you. They hunt you.
Where did you learn that from? I know you watched the three American soldiers die, but they were standing in the light, so they could have just as easily been seen by the monsters. Also, echolocation means they can see you regardless if you make sound, because they sense the vibrations in the air they make as sound bounces off you.
Seen their weakness. They burn in sunlight. Like any living being, they can be killed. Stake through the heart.
Just say it's a vampire and stop beating around the bush. Is vampire going into the list of monster names you can't say like zombie?
And there are fuck knows how many of those things out there. I say we pull back to the temple and regroup.
Why isn't your objective to leave instead of fortifying the temple? There's no reason for you to stay down here. And you know that going up will get you out. You even brought climbing equipment. It's so goddamn simple to get out of this situation.
Pretty sure those creatures didn't do this. Who did?
Oh no. Buffy?
Who?
Just say vampire. Calling them vampires won't make this any sillier than it already is.
You know that checkpoint was a prime target for suicide bombers. We had to act in the moment. We had to make a call.
It was the wrong call.
I realize accidentally killing a civilian weeks ago is important to Nick's character, but as far as he knows, his girlfriend is dead and that doesn't seem to be weighing as heavy on him. Rachel landed in a pool of blood, which I'd be interested in learning how the monsters killed enough people to create, since no one has been down here since a failed archaeological team in the 1940s. Also, why are there fires down here? The vampires see through echolocation. They wouldn't need fires to see where they're going. I'm afraid your blood-soaked clothes would make a very effective torch. Remember, these monsters hunt using echolocation, so the worst environment for them is immersed in a viscous liquid that will render them blind to the world. Unless they are also part dolphin and can use sonar as well. Blood and bones are incredibly flammable in this world. Were you just standing there watching Rachel she bumped into you while looking the other way? Who acts like that outside of horror movies? Most people react if someone is about to barge into them. If this weren't a game, I would wonder if someone on the film crew hadn't wandered accidentally in front of the camera and they decided to go with it. Joey, who was shot to death earlier, has been turned into this goofy looking thing. He was also the one who walked right past Eric a moment ago instead of attacking him despite how aggressive he is now. Villains are always introduced feet first cliché.
There's medication up there. It may help you, but we need to move, now!
Clarice can barely stand due to her infection, but Rachel somehow gets her to free climb the rest of the cliff.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck is an excellent tagline for the series. You don't have to do anything but twist the volume knob to shut up a radio. Also, this radio noise gets the attention of the vampires. But earlier, these guys were setting off explosions to block entrances, and that never triggered an attack.
You followed climbing protocol. But you had no other choice but to cut the rope.
Actually, I cut the rope because I saw in a vision that only Eric would die if I didn't.
You've been fucking him, haven't you?
That's the best you got?
You want to read that line like you're actually in a fight with someone?
Always loyal.
Always loyal, huh? You weren't so loyal when you cut the rope.
You just told him that cutting the line was proper protocol and didn't hold it against him.
Come on. There's gotta be something. Wait! Yes! Okay, we can make for the catacombs! We need to go down!
Rachel has never been to that area, so she has no idea what she's talking about when she says they need to go down there into the catacombs. She just sees it on a screen and decides that's their destination, as if it's somehow safer. World War II era machine gun that hasn't been serviced in 60 years fires flawlessly. Good thing it was loaded too. The generator just exploded, but the lights remain on. They are 348 feet below the surface and still somehow getting light rays from the sun. Also, there is no way in hell this temple would be buried this deep in the ground after only 4,000 years. Every single time there is a door in need of opening, it's stuck and 2 people are going to have to shoulder it open. And in this case, it only took 1 person to close it behind them. Villains are introduced feet first. Again, I guess we had to see both of his feet before they would reveal they belong to one of the 2 ancient Akkadians from the prologue who was turned into a vampire. I do like that it gives you the option of trying a crucifix on the vampire, even if the game won't use the word vampire. Nick begs Eric for help, which he receives. Then when the Gutian attacks Eric, Nick runs off with Salim instead of returning the favor.
What the hell? Don't you fucking move.
He clearly moved to a new position after you said that. Salim was behind the pillar, and in the next shot he's standing in front of you. That's a couple tons of stone these 2 are lifting up, and then just one of them holds it up while the other crawls underneath. Why would the Akkadians even build a door like this?
They're vampires.
Not possible.
Well, someone finally said it. For some reason, Jason believes vampires to be impossible, as if there's some other description to use here.
What is the meaning of those markings on your hand?
It's to honor the dead. It's the reason I fight.
Your people chose this war, Jason.
Even while under attack by vampires in an ancient tomb, people will find ways to bring politics into this. Difficult to open doors are responsible for around half the suspenseful scenes in this game. How would there be working lights in this room? The generator was destroyed back in the main hall during the attack, and this is the first time any of them have been down here. The doomed archaeological team that found this place 60 years ago managed to build a lift down to where the vampires are coming from, meaning that small team of people brought several hundred meters of thick iron chains and a winch big enough to lift it with them for no reason that they were just lucky enough to get to use.
Our world is up there, not down below.
Well, there's an army of monsters between us and the world above.
You never made any attempt to leave, even when there were no monsters between you and the service. Why choose to go into the heart of darkness when darkness has been kicking your ass? The curator interrupts again to tell you that choices matter, then you see a flashback to the crash that ended Eric and Rachel's relationship, and it happened near the location of the second game of the Dark Pictures anthology, Little Hope, meaning monsters existed in this world the entire time, and they still went with a psychological twist the last 2 games despite that. What makes this even weirder is that the actor playing Eric was also the actor who played the police officer and town marshal back in Little Hope. There are lights on down here where Nick was knocked during the fight. Destroying that generator has really set them back on the continuity error chart. I can accept bullets not being effective against the alien vampires, but why not the human-turned vampire?
I can't turn my back on my past. If I didn't give you a chance, I'd always regret it.
Thank you.
Does Eric get to be mad that his wife was sleeping with another man at all? He's just happy she picked him.
Maybe we should take the initiative and make something happen.
What'd you have in mind?
We go inside there, and we find a way to hurt them.
While everyone needs a goal, I don't think a direct assault on an army of space vampires helps anyone. These things have been down here for longer than humanity has existed, and they never come out, so they're not a threat to anyone on the outside. Getting out and telling the world about it should be a higher priority. Due to Rachel being infected with the vampire parasite, she sees their origin once they play the big pipe organ computer. They came to Earth on an asteroid clearly inspired by that oblong one that passed through our solar system a few years back, somehow not killing every alien on board despite being at the center of a massive explosion. Also, these used to be peaceful aliens. It was the parasite that infected them and turned them into vampires. If you have a parasite that seeks new hosts and can infect humans, how come they chose to remain down here all this time instead of seeking fresh bodies to control? Awfully restrained for a mind control parasite.
Every step of the way, you keep in radio contact.
And if there's no radio signal?
Then I'll pop a flare. See it go up, you hit that detonator.
Either someone else recorded that line or Nick forgot his accent. I guess Salim on Overwatch failed to see that undead Gutian sneaking up on Nick. Then again, despite what this shot suggests, he isn't present in the next shot and doesn't attack until after the explosives have been detonated. I only picked up 1 bundle of dynamite earlier, then Nick confirmed 3 bundles of dynamite a minute ago. Now he places at least a dozen bundles on the hive, but then it only shows 3 bundles of dynamite all stuck to the surface instead of slotted into recesses like he was animated doing. The vampires are being uncharacteristically patient by not attacking Nick until he lights a signal fire, which isn't even necessary since he has a radio. 3 bundles of dynamite and 1 stick of C4 explosives somehow turn into a controlled demolition of the entire hive. Despite being right in front of the explosives, Nick survives.
But I'm injured. I need help.
Nick said he was injured and couldn't move. After being nearly choked to death by the Gutian and saved by Salim, his injuries disappear and he can climb the structure back to the top. After the raid on the hive, they make their way back to the temple and easily escape the underground by climbing out. Why the hell didn't they do that hours ago? Uh-oh, looks like there's a solar eclipse today. Those don't normally sneak up on you. You'd think someone would have mentioned that earlier. Someone like Eric, who works with satellites.
It's a sunback! 6 minutes back! We just need to hold out!
Here's the thing. Eric never learned that sunlight kills these things during my playthrough since the UV wand was never used. The only info he could be going on here is Salim telling them that he saw one get burned earlier, which Salim has never mentioned to him.
Shit! It's our last clip!
Magazine, not clip. I would think someone with the rank of colonel would know the difference.
Where's the ammo? These are fucking flares! Light them! We can hold them off.
Why would they be afraid of flares? They can't see. Someone needs to tell the developer that ending each of their games the same way with a goofy fight against a real or imagined threat kills any sense of suspense.
So they cooperated with an Iraqi soldier down there?
Republican Guard, if you can believe it. Must have made a hell of an impression for Kolchak to go back for him.
I'm dying to meet this guy.
Nothing to show. He walked.
The hell's that mean?
By the time the extraction team got here, he was gone.
But we prepared this lovely empty interrogation room to serve as a visual metaphor for his absence. If there's some secret government agency now investigating these aliens and their technology, you're going to have to explain why the US ever pulled out of Iraq if this was just sitting there under the sand.
Embrace the suck.